All right, it's Saturday night, and we are live from Mentor Nerds. Special guest Dave, musical guest Kyle, and I.
Hello.
So here we are from Mentor Nerds. We are talking favorite IPAs of all time. I think that's the idea, and we're going to talk maybe like favorite style and behind the scenes. We already gave away everything, so we'll just talk about what we already talked about. Like kind of our IPA story journey, weird things we found in Untapped that didn't make sense. So where do we want to start? We all know what IPAs are, so we're not going to do some weird scientific talk about IPAs or pale ales. I guess pale ales could also count in there. They should. They're just less hoppy.
I was going to say, if not, I'm getting fired off the show because, I bungled mine.
So how do we want to begin? Who wants to begin? Me?
Yeah, why don't you start? Why don't you introduce us to your favorite IPA, Wally?
It's my favorite IPA. It's actually my favorite beer of all time.
Is
and
it?
It's probably not the best beer I've ever had, but it's the best beer experience I ever had. So remember one day, like after work, it was the perfect time. It was like transcendent. I'm like, I don't think I've ever tasted anything so good. And it's Blind Man's Long Shadows, to nobody's surprise. West Coast style IPA. Now, I've heard that they are making this to try and copy Pliny. They're trying to get the Pliny recipe down using Long Shadows. So it changes a little bit every year. 7.1%, 71 IBU. That's mine. Kyle?
So I mentioned that I kind of bungled this because I assumed this was an IPA because I've drank it a few times. Now, it's funny when you say favorite IPA. What I didn't do was the homework, right? I didn't go back through Untapped, but we can get into that because there was an answer in there. But asking me my favorite IPA is a bit like asking me my favorite movie or my favorite song. It kind of varies. Depends on the mood I'm in, the season I'm in. There's a couple that kind of fluctuate. But so I thought immediately of a beer that just knocked me flat the first time I've had it. Again, not for my favorite brewery per se, not my favorite beer of all time, but one that when I had it, I was just like, it was so good that it just was, breathtaking. And it was Super Saturation by Cabin, which is actually a NEPA instead of an IPA. So I messed that up. So that's me. But here we are.
Super
I'm going to drink it.
Awesome.
And
correct.
I like it.
It's all good.
Mr. Dave, let's see what you got.
Okay, well, talking about getting kicked off YouTube, I went with none other than the king of beers, Budweiser. Just did.
Good.
I'm just going to throw this away now. Okay, seriously. I think Kyle had the same idea I did, where I went back and like, there's been a lot that have tickled my fancy over the years, but there's one that really stood out in the journey that really just had everything kind of just melded into one moment where it was perfect. So I went with Disco Soleil from Due to Seal, to nobody's surprised.
No, that's the big one. Yeah,
a new can.
And a new can, yes. They went to the big 750 mils.
That's how into that beer we are. Is that you're like, oh hey, we noticed this new can. It's like,
yep.
So did anybody's selection surprise anybody? Because this is exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think, we've all talked. So
part of me didn't pick Super Saturation because I thought Kyle might.
Because I like that beer a lot. But apparently Super Duper Saturation counts as an IPA, and maybe that's where I kind of got confused. But it's okay. So to bring it back, though, and again, I think to just taste them, like I said, for this one being, it's just so juicy and because it's not actually an IPA. So, and I've only had this, last year is the first time I've had it. So it's fairly new for me. And it's not one of those sort of old classics. But I mean, that kind of tracks for me in my drinking habits, I think, is that if you look back, and we mentioned this in the behind the scenes, is that looking back through our Untaps and the times that we've kind of drank them together, 2016 for me was peak IPA. It looks like that's all I was drinking that year.
Yeah, I know that today too.
Yeah, and it's kind of like since then I've kind of moved on, and the occasional IPA is good, but it just I actually thought this was one. So here we are.
Okay, so we got a couple people in chat saying there's Dylan from Dylan's White Raven.
Right.
Good choice.
Yep.
Jonathan saying River Valley IPA, and I have no idea what that's from. So Jonathan, if you're in chat, let us know. And then he said he had some Last Best and Fat Tug early. Remember when we were on the Fat Tug train?
Yeah,
probably 2016 as well.
I was gonna say that stuff was pretty good.
Oh, I got River Valley on mine. So
yeah, okay. Where's it from? What brewery?
Looks like Jonathan's saying Big Rock.
Oh, Big
Yep.
Rock.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Like we were talking about Innocent Gun earlier, and it's funny how like some of these breweries, like so Big Rock or Wild Rose or Innocent Gun, you never expect them to actually have like a good beer, but it's always the IPA that seems to stand out for some reason, right? Like Gunpowder IPA is really good. It's better than normal Innocent Gun.
The gunpowder is really good.
Yeah. But it's funny that when you go through it, so well, an IPA is so broad a category now. I mean, we were just talking about this, right? You go through your Untapped, and there's 13 different kinds of IPAs that I've had.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, and they're all very different. So it is kind of and so for IPApril, right? It's kind of a big category, and well, it's the most famous and most popular beer category for a long time, and I don't even know if it still is, but probably.
I think it's just getting bigger. I was in a conversation online somewhere, and we were talking about. It was on Reddit, and somebody asked like, "Who makes good lagers or pilsners in Alberta?" And people are like, "Oh God, I'll just drink IPA. Screw that. Like, why would you ever want a pilsner or lager? It's like because it's good." But it just shows like how IPAs have kind of transcended the micro, the craft beer scene where it's all IPAs. If you don't make an IPA, it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you almost have to have at least one IPA, even just on tap for the patio, because it's like the beer scene's always rotating. We were the same way when we kind of we're like big IPA snobs. Like, oh yeah, let's try IPAs, right? And it took some time, and it might have been trying different styles of IPAs that did it. And it took some time for me to get into like, okay, let's try stouts and porters and traditional German and Czech beers and sours and whatnot. And I think IPAs help that. But it's interesting that IPAs are kind of like the most abrasive type of beer, and they're the most popular.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say for a while there, we were like 100 IBUs or bust.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like Waldo's, right? 100 IBUs or whatever it is.
There's a few. So, but everything's kind of like, it's all in like your journey, right? As your taste buds, it just not everything's really good the first time. Like, because I know when we did it, the IPAs for the first time, we were not sold. It took us a while to kind of, but then you learn, you appreciate, your profiles change. So
yeah, for sure.
So do you guys? So Super Saturation was just last year, so you've had it. Long Shadows I had a few years ago for sure. When was do you have a date for your first Disco Soleil, Dave? Do you remember where it was or anything? Because we were probably together.
I'm going to hazard a guess. Not necessarily the year, but probably the place.
Well, I have 43 check-ins, so this might take a
Disco. Because I was going to say, if you guys weren't at Two Guys when you had Disco the first time,
I would say that's most likely where it was. I'm going.
Yeah, that's probably where it was when you guys were working your way through their beer passports. Hi, Paul.
Yeah. And actually, the first like 20 or Two Guys. So
there are Two Guys. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense now that you say it for sure.
Yeah, no.
Because there is the only thing I would say, my only, and I guess I wouldn't say complaint, but my only, I guess, thing with Disco is, does it taste like kumquats, and how do you know?
Well, I don't know. I was actually looking at that when I was doing the research. I'm like, I don't even know if I've ever ate a kumquat. Like, I don't know.
Right.
But
for those if I've seen one.
Right, exactly. For those in the channel who haven't seen it, Disco is a kumquat IPA. Right.
So don't come here for the kumquat expert, because I don't know.
Right,
but,
exactly. Maybe it does.
You know what a kumquat
what it does. But what it does do, though, is it brings in that citrus flavor. Like, that's what kind of brings the whole thing together. So whatever flavor, like maybe it's not unique or individual, but it kind of blends it and gives it that tropical, that citrusy kind of taste to it, right?
Who knows? You could bite into a kumquat and it could taste just like Disco, and you'd be like, oh.
I'll probably be drunk in 2 bites.
Again, I'd have no idea what a kumquat is. Disco's an interesting beer. So Super Saturation is definitely like a hazy, Northeast New England beer. Long Shadows is a West Coast because it's malty, bitter tropical fruits. Disco's weird, and I don't even know where you categorize it because it's sweet and bitter.
It is weird because it's like a Pilsner base, like because it's almost a pilsner, but when they add like the kumquat, there's 3 different hops in that too, right? So
Okay.
because you have Citro, Amarillo, and I have it written down. I can't remember the last one, but yeah. So because when I was reading about it, they were just playing around, and that's just one flavor that just really brought a few things together, right? Like
do they really use kumquats, or is it the hops that make it taste like kumquat?
no, that like I said, the kumquats is what, like the hops. So they take a pilsner, then they add like their hops and stuff, and then they use. There's a different purge they use there too. I can't remember what it's called, but like the kumquat, like I said, is what gives it that citrusy, like the orange kind of to it. So
so they use pilsner malts. That's really interesting, actually. That's normally something that gets lagered instead of an ale, right? So
yeah,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, they call it just sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because the 2 guys that started it were both biologists, right? So the scientists get together, they were lab partners, and like, okay, we both love beer. Let's like do some crazy stuff, right? So the lightning hits the Tesla units, and these guys start cranking out all this stuff.
Dump a bushel of kumquats into the vat, and
basically, Igor stirring that vat. I got it, but
it's my most checked in beer, like in by a long shot for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I got 43. So, and that can't be all of them.
No, well, that probably doesn't include the picture we had on the patio.
I couldn't even remember how to use my phone for about 3 days after that. So,
well, we were drinking Coors Light all day, and then found this pub that had it on tap. We're like, whoa, yes.
So excited, unfiltered, like right for the tap, Disco Soleil, like not canned, not bottled, nothing. We're like, we're throwing. Let's get a jug. Let's go.
Yeah, and it was a rough morning. I had to go find coffee immediately after waking up, and walk like 100 miles to find it. It was weird.
Worth it.
Okay, so Kyle, earlier you brought up like famous IPAs and stuff.
Yes.
So,
sorry, give me a second here.
And I know you have it. I was looking on my list, and I have like like the Stone IPA and a few, but I don't have Pliny and I don't have Heady.
No, those kind of impossible ones.
You guys had one in Vegas, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Which was funny because I didn't remember having it until I went back through the list, which is funny. And so that's sort of, I guess, a larger discussion about sort of Untapped. It is when you gamify it like that, like we do. We're nerds, we're gamers. We know how it's like. You try and chase those ones, and I did not remember having it. So, and apparently, funny enough, Dave and I were together in Vegas, and we had Dogfish Head 90 Minute, which is a pretty big sort of one of the more famous IPAs. Yeah. And I mean, I rated it highly, so I must have thought well of it at the time, but I do not have much of a memory of having that beer.
So it would have been bitter as hell. So the 120 minute, is it 90 minute or the 120?
So we had the 90, the 120s, I think the killer. That's the hot bomb.
Because 90 minutes is how long it's boiled for, and the longer it boils, the more bitter it gets.
Yeah, it's 90 IBU, 9%. So I mean, I wonder if it says, because I'm going to check my check-in to see what time.
Right up, like as strong as you can get. Holy.
It only has the date. It doesn't say the time. No, so that might have changed. I remember that beer.
Was that 2 in the afternoon or 10 at night? Because
those are two different things.
Bottles or on tap or what? Do you remember?
Looks like draft, I think.
Oh, okay, crazy. I didn't know if they do something like that on
draft. Yeah, they must have. Well, I mean, it was in the New York, and Vegas, and I think there was I seem to remember there being like a beer bar in there, restaurant / beer bar. If I remember correctly, it had like orange seats and stuff like that. So crazy. I think it was right in the hotel. But yeah, we must have decided that was the thing we were going to do because we saw it and we did it. And I have little to no recollection of it.
Yeah. Well, I had 0 too when you brought it up. Like, I checked mine. So,
you're like, I'm pretty sure I haven't had that. Yeah.
No, there you go.
What's the worst IPA you've ever had? I told you mine, chat, but it was Bad Hair. It was called. I'm going to see if I can find it on here. And it was in Edmonton. We were at a hotel. It was like there's a liquor store right next by Rhinelander Brewing Company. It was 8.5 alcohol. I gave it a 0.5. It was 2016, so I knew my IPAs then.
Yeah. I've got one that it's funny that I remember distinctly because I remember how terrible this beer tasted. And it's funny because another one of the ones that I thought more of you were going to do, well, especially now I had discounted the disco because I don't like disco as much as you guys do, but I thought it was going to be grapefruit sculpin, from Ballast Point. That was a big beer for us for a long time. We drank that beer a lot. And so in the same vein, clearly I decided I would have a watermelon Dorado, which was a watermelon double IPA. And I gave it a 1 because it was terrible. And the taste of that beer haunts me because as soon as I saw it on my list, I was like, oh yes, I remember you. That it was no good.
I think Ballast Point, and it's not really slam them, but other than Sculpin and Grapefruit Sculpin, I don't know if I've had a lot of really good beer from them actually.
No, because their other ones aren't like I like their grapefruit, but like their long fin and stuff are just not.
I think they have a stout or an imperial stout called Victory at Sea. I've had a couple of times. I think it's pretty good, but for IPAs, no, I think that's it.
It's funny. Now I'm looking them up. I gave the watermelon Dorado a 1.
Yeah, me too. We didn't check each other in. I don't know if we were together when that happened, but
I had it on December 7th, 2016. Was it in the Advent calendar?
It must have been because I had it on December 7th, 2016. It must have been, yeah, that must have been. It must have been in the calendar. Somebody must have slipped that in there because, it was real bad.
Callie was with me actually when I had that bad hair IPA, the one I poured down the sink. Sculpin only gave it 3.5, and that can't be right because that beer is very good.
Oh, Dave gave the watermelon a 2.5.
Oh, that's like almost your favorite beer ever.
He stood up for it. Yeah.
How's that even showing up in mind?
But you're talking about styles, so let's talk that.
Okay.
Because I'm going to do a show in the future, and we're going to do milkshake beers. So I'm going to do Analog's Milkshake IPA.
Okay.
And you love milkshake IPAs, right, Dave?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So what is your favorite style of IPA, and why, obviously? And then also,
follow up.
tell us, follow up, an IPA that you just won't drink, a type of IPA.
Okay, so my favorite style, I guess we're just going to go in the moment.
Yeah.
Right now is like the double IPAs or the Imperials, right?
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know, just the combination of like how bitter it is, how strong it is. They're really just tickling a node back in there right now. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of chasing milkshakes right behind. Like I'm always on the lookout for a good milkshake because I do love those. Least favorite. Oh my goodness,
that's a tough one, hey?
Yeah. I'll get back to you. I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't know off the top.
So I'm definitely a West Coast guy. Like that's just it's the right balance. I like hazy beers because I know Dave's like a big haze bomb guy, and haze bombs work best I think when they are like 8.5% though, because the booze cuts the fruit a bit because they're usually so juicy, like so cloyingly sweet that the high booze percentage helps cut that a bit. But I'm definitely a West Coast guy because I like malt and I like bitterness and I like the fruit, the kind of like the verdant flavor. Brett IPAs, anything with Brett in it.
Oh, Brett, yeah.
Like Brettanomyces IPAs, I can't stand at all. The IPA kind of IPA I really don't like though are like cask IPAs, like whiskey cask, rye cask, like rye IPAs.
Rye IPAs, yeah.
Something that like it feels forced, like somebody put a shot of it in my glass and it feels so separate from the drink, and I've never liked those styles.
So for me, actually, I think it's probably, and it's not one I drink all the time, but looking back and sort of thinking about it, every time I drink one, I just love it, is black or Cascadian IPAs.
Oh yeah.
Like a black IPA, whenever it's good, it just knocks me flat. I just really, really like that. It's different. It's maltier, it's roastier, but you still get that IPA stuff. Yeah. Probably right behind it is another fairly new style is Brute IPA. For a little while, that was the hotness.
Yes.
And I actually still really like it. I think they're delicious. Establishment's got one called 9 to 5. I've had a couple of times that I really, really like. But I think that's a flash in the pan. Honestly, I think that's a style that's not going to stick around very much longer. Because everyone was doing it for a bit there, and then it's sort of like even this year I haven't seen too many around, so I'm wondering if it's already faded. But actually, I feel that way about milkshake. I was really into it for a bit, and now I'm kind of like, it kind of faded out of my. I don't know, out of my thing, and then maybe Brute will follow it. I don't know, but it's one of those things. It's like
I was never like I just can't get into them. I don't. They're almost like extra unfiltered milkshake IPAs.
Yeah.
So like, and beer is a visual thing still. So like, I just can't get over like the chunks sometimes.
The poops.
I just can't. Brewed IPA I think is just going to go away because it was actually an accident when it was created. For those who don't know, or people watching this later, and thank you for doing so if you are, they just added something into the beer to take away the sugar, and it came out champagne-like.
Oh.
It was this place in San Francisco, and they fucked up their beer, and they're like, actually, it's not bad. So then they like, okay, how did we do that? Because you always write your recipes down as you go. And they kind of leaned into that, and they're like, oh, okay. It's only like 2018 it came around.
Yeah, that's been long. Well, I remember we went to the one I had local that was really good was Stronghold was doing one last summer, I want to say.
Yeah.
Or even the summer before that. And it was really, really good. And so I have a few of those on my list that I was like, yeah, that was a good style. One you don't see too much anymore, but again, kind of flash in the pan stuff, but I liked it. For your least favorite, I don't know. Probably rye PA, like rye based. I don't care for it. So that's probably or like overly fruity apparently, because like the watermelon I dunked on because I didn't get it.
Well, so I generally don't like cask beer at all, to be fair. So,
well, I disagree with you guys. I think rye IPAs are actually really good.
Yeah,
I've had the last few I've had. Last bit have been good. I think if I had to take my worst, I'm gonna go with the Sessions.
Oh yeah,
okay. Really like beer,
yeah. Because you're right. It's only kind of half going for what you're after, right? And
more or less, yeah.
If you're gonna drink one of those, I'd rather drink like quite frankly, a lager or something, or just a pale, because you're right. You're not really doing what you need to do.
A Session's like an IPA without teeth, right? It's like not very bitter. There's no alcohol at all. It's like a pretend IPA. It would be like if Budweiser made an IPA, honestly.
And for the Session lovers out there, I'm only doing it because I had to pick a worst. So
yeah,
that's what.
And I get it. Like there are good ones. I think if you're a Session IPA, you just have to be like super fruity because you're not going to be super bitter. All right, so
no.
I tend to like IPAs that are like a bit stronger, like at 6-7% kind of.
Right. Well, especially if you're getting ready to have that type of beer, right?
Yeah, and it binds it well.
Cool. Yeah.
What else were you talking about? What's that?
I was just looking. What's funny? I was a bit distracted. I was scrolling through my stuff. We had another Dogfish Head in Vegas, Dave. Flesh and Blood IPA.
God, did we go to Vegas?
We must have. It's a
good trip apparently. So
lemon and blood orange IPA. I apparently really liked it.
Lemon and blood orange IPA.
Yeah, I liked it. Amanda not so much, but I liked it. Strange, but it's funny that when I went back through that list, because like I said, we had tons of one-offs when you're gaming the pie, right? When you're just trying to get the one-offs. But there was one that I scrolled through that I saw, and I was like, oh, that was the correct answer for what probably would have been my favorite pure IPA, in the sense that it's just an American style. There's nothing too fancy about it. I've had it a pile, and I love it every time I have it. And that's Play Dead IPA by Yellow Dog.
Oh, by Yellow Dog. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that was the correct answer, because that beer is delicious.
But it's like you said, it's a perfect companion, because it's like it's always what you expect, right? Like
exactly.
It hits all the right notes. It's maybe not your favorite beer, but it's never disappointed you.
Never ever, and it's never ever disappointed me. And every time I have it, it's good. And I was like, oh, that was the right answer. But clearly, I don't think I even had a 4-pack of it not that long ago, like a month ago, maybe.
I did too, actually.
It's just like, oh, that is, you're right. It's like an old friend, right? You just go back to that. I think the first time I had that was when we went to the Canucks game in Vegas. because I think I had never heard of it before that, and we were in that apartment, and I was like, "Holy, what is this?" Because I gave it, that was December 27th, 2016, and I gave it a 4.5 on that rating, and I think that was probably accurate because
They're out of like Oregon or something, right?
no, Yellow Dog is Vancouver.
No, they're beastie. Yeah.
Yeah, but Port Moody. Yeah, there it is. Play Dead. So
On
good.
the queue for IPApril, yeah. Port Moody.
Yeah.
I thought you guys said you had it in Vegas. Sorry.
No, we were in.
Not that one.
No, not that one. I remember that.
That was in Vancouver.
Yeah, the hockey trip I remember.
Yeah.
But the no, it's really good, and I've had it a bunch of times. I don't check it in every time because again, it's like an old friend, but it's it's a great beer.
Cal's asking. Sorry, go ahead, Dave. We'll finish.
I was just gonna say it's just this is a really tough topic in a sense where to pick your favorite, I'm like, there's so many. Like,
There's so many.
Like you guys are mentioning different beers. Like, oh yeah, that was a really good beer. Like, oh, that was really good. Like, it's that's a tough one to do. Like, I don't know how you narrow down to like even your top 10. Like,
well, I'm lousy for favorite movie, favorite song too. It all depends. Whatever mood I'm in, what I've been thinking about lately. You know, I've got some like top.
Am
10,
I sad, happy, tired? Right.
Is it raining? You know, like
Is it Motley Crue Day or is it Aerosmith Day?
Right.
But there's some that like always stand out. I think, like when we were discussing in the beginning, there was a few of these. I thought about Disco, and I thought about Grapefruit Sculpin. And I thought about Super Saturation. Ransack the Universe from Collective Arts was up there.
Yeah,
that's good.
Right?
That's a good
one.
one.
But I was like, you know what? The best beer I've ever drank in my life, like single best beer ever, was a can of Blind Man.
Yeah.
So Callie's asking, have you ever had an IPA that didn't taste like an IPA, like false advertising? Because I hate false advertising. Because it basically, I had a Rural Roots beer, and they're like, oh, super haze bomb. And it just kind of came out clear and orange and wasn't fruity. And I was like, well, this is not at all what you advertise, because people like to put hazy on their cans now because it's like the new thing for IPA.
Yeah, it's
everybody
trending.
wants. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah, it's definitely had before. I would have to say, if I look back on my lousy reviews, there's one that made me laugh, and that was that. Remember when we did our first ever Fermented Nerds video, and we drank that Gamer Night IPA?
Oh yeah.
That one said it tasted like beer, and it didn't, and I was upset.
Yeah, that was false advertising.
Actually, that one, I think that one just won, because I think we can all agree on that, because that was a perfect example.
That beer was awful.
It was bad.
It reminds me of
actually there's. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say it reminds me of when Cooley Bruce started brewing and how bad their beers were.
At the very, they couldn't give it away in the very beginning. Yeah.
It was just like, oh my god, like these are no good. It reminded me of that. It was like amateur hour garage IPA or something. It was so bad.
Yeah. Actually, there's one here that I have that I see on my Untapped list that I think I had purged from my memory. And funny enough, it's a brewed IPA, which is hilarious. That it was this Dead Frog made a New Year's one. It was called Balls Be Droppin' brewed IPA. And I had it on New Year's in 2019. And I remember that beer was just not as advertised. It just was awful. Like it didn't have that broody, like, you know, champagne dryness. It just tasted bad. And I was like, oh, yep, that's one that I thought was not good. There's another one. Phillips has a rare miss for me because I like a lot of stuff Phillips does. But they have one that's called I think it's called Badass, Bat AS. And it's supposed to be a session, and it just doesn't taste good. And I think that's so not so much that it's like, oh, it's too weak in the knees or whatever. There's just a few that are like, and you're right, most of my low ones are sessions. So it's like you're supposed to be an IPA and you're coming in here with basically, you know, scared water. And that's no good. Yeah.
I was just looking on Untapped. So we started I did anyways, start checking in IPAs in late 2015. It was Dave and I were in Vancouver on that brewery tour. There's a bunch of
infamous,
Granville Island, Evil Twin,
that's all it was.
Teamwork, Strange Fellows, all that. And then again in the States, in Missoula, like Flathead, Draftworks, Tamarack. Well, Tamarack had a Rye Sally Rye. Weird, I didn't even rate that. Oh, and then my next one after that's even then I gave it a 2.75, and I didn't know anything about beer.
Oh, I got one from Phil's Brewing. Sky High Grand Fear L. Oh, that stupid pine tree one or whatever.
Oh yeah,
the pine 0.5
with the spruce tips or whatever in it. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
with legit spruce tips.
Yeah, so who knows?
So
I've
A
had
whole
that
lot
one.
of hillbilly in there.
So after Disco Dave, the one I thought for sure you're going to bring was Fresh Squeezed.
No, it was in there. It actually didn't even make my top 3. To be honest with you.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's I don't know. Again, it's just like you just try to pick the best, but so no, it's up. Well, honorable mention, I guess, but
Yeah.
a delicious beer. Like it never treated me wrong because that's actually when we went to Telegraph and there was like nothing here. It was always go to there too, right? So
Yeah. Cool.
no,
All right,
too many to be happy about.
No,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So cool. So right before we head off for the evening, my choice for favorite IPA of all time was Long Shadow India Pale Ale from Lacombe, Alberta's Blind Man Brewing. Second best brewery in Alberta.
Mine was Super Saturation, not an IPA, but pretend that it was
Ah,
because it is delicious.
mine's Dudacia out of Montreal. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
And
There it is.
You can.
first
kumquats
love,
than ever.
still the same love. So
I'm glad we all picked different beer. Like, and the thing is, for everybody watching, is we didn't talk about this beforehand. We're just like, okay, get your favorite beer.
Yeah.
We'll bring it on. And that way we weren't sharing just so we could be. It's just easier. Not surprising picks. But when all of a sudden this whole video has got me questioning everything, it's like, man, like you said, like you can't pick a favorite IPA. I'm like, well, I could probably list my top 5, and then in my head I started doing it. I'm like, well, can I? Shit,
Can I even get that far?
long.
Yeah.
well,
there's
I
just
thought
so
of my
many.
top 3, and you brought in another one. I'm like, God, how did I even not think of that one? Like, is there that many good ones that I can't even put them all in that order?
Yeah, like I can't believe I left off Yellow Dog because when you think about it, you're just like, oh man. Like even now, as I'm drinking this, I was like, I could go for a Yellow Dog. Like I could just
like,
make that happen. Like
After we hang up, do I record a video on on the Play Dead now? Maybe.
maybe
It's fermented nerds after dark. Yeah, that's
Right,
what
after hours,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching this in the future, thank you. If you're watching this in the past, weird. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. Send me a jetpack.
Yeah,
you get a 3.5.
If your beer's in the future and Dave is drinking it, I can predict your future. It's getting a 3.5.
Yeah, getting a 3.25. but he liked it.
Yeah.
That's like him giving like a sour tuna. That's like him rating a sour. It's like
That's like saying you're not Stella, but
Right.
you're not ice cold, nearly freezing stuff. Okay, cool.
Anyway.
For Kyle, Dave, Wally, for Mid Nerds, we're out.
Thanks, everybody.
hey, love you, boys.
Bye.